Hey there. Right now I'm doing something which I really hate, and that is dead bug prototyping. So suppose you have a component like this one, which you have to solder on a board like this one, which is a Vero board. Clearly, the pad sizes of this board isn't comparable with the pad size of this IC. So you can't solder it the right side up. What would happen is that you would end up shorting a lot of pads, and yeah, the thing won't work. So what people do is yeah, it's a very dirty process, but what people do is they stick the IC like this, and they solder tiny wires or thin wires to each pad on the IC and then to the Vero board pads. So now you have a broken out board of this IC. Yeah, the pads get reversed compared if you compare it with the datasheet pinout. I beg your pardon, it's mirrored, not reversed. So yeah, just for the sake of explanation, I use this component, but this is not what I'm going to use. I'm going to use a much smaller one, this guy. So yeah, it's going to be quite difficult. So I have arranged a FR4 substrate on which there's a double-sided tape. Here it is, so you can't see it because it's a clear one. I'm going to stick this IC like this over here. Yeah, it is stuck. Oops, sorry. Yeah, it is stuck over there. And now I'm going to use my conical tip again, which I hate. I hate the conical tip. The flat tip or the chisel tip is much better. So I'm going to use the conical tip, and I'm going to solder thin strands from this wire onto the pads of this one. So before I do that, I'm going to apply some flux. You really have to control the pressure. Yeah, that's the right amount of flux. Yep. And after the application of flux, I am going to put some solder paste on that. I haven't looked up on this process of how to debug. I don't believe there is a correct process to do it, and this is just my way of doing it. I could have used a, I'm sorry, butterfingers. I could have used a solder wire, but I don't know, I just think this is too thick for the purpose. So I'm going to use this solder paste instead. I think I should have melted that flux a little bit before applying the solder paste, but let's see how it turns out. I believe this is hot. Yeah. Okay, moment of truth. Yeah, I have big nails. I need to trim my nails. Okay, the solder just flowed right off the IC, and the IC is also moving around because the double-sided tape is not the best way to hold it in place, but yeah, it is doing its job. I don't know, probably it's not the best way. Yeah, so somehow I need to get this blob of solder away from the thermal pad. Okay, so got a bit of it off, and now let's see whether the other pads are soldered or not. The other pads are looking good. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm going to connect single strands from this cable. So I'm going to pull off strands. Now, prior to soldering any wire, one must pre-tin the tip of the wire. So I'm just going to, let's see, place each of the wires like this, and I'm going to take my solder wire and try to tin the edges of these, or the tips of the wires. Okay, see for yourself. The connections looks good, I think. Doesn't it look like a dead bug? Um, so that's why it's called a dead bug prototype. Now that we have the dead bug, we can solder it on the perf board. But before doing that, we must ensure the pinout of this IC. Now I'm going to apply a little bit of super glue on this board, and I'm going to stick the, where did that go? Right, I'm going to stick the IC on the board in an inverted fashion, and then I'm going to solder the wires. I'm just trying to get the tiny nozzle of the super glue from the container, but it seems to be stuck to the container because of the glue inside of it. That is bad. Okay, I've got it out. Now it doesn't seem to fit on the super glue thing. Yeah, so now I'm gonna quickly place this thing. Okay, I screwed up. The glue is almost dry by now. Did I screw up actually? I don't know. Let's try it. No, the glue is actually not dry. It is still a little bit wet. So yeah, I think I've got it on there, and it's not going anywhere. Right. So now I'm going to solder these wires to the pads. Now I have arranged the wires on the pads. Now it's just a matter of soldering on the right pads. Now this is why I hate the conical tip, because it cannot transfer heat properly, and it has no proper heat sweet spots, unlike the chisel tip. Now while soldering, one of the wires came undone, so I'm gonna try to resolder that wire to the IC pad. It's a easy task. So that's yeah, I believe that is soldered once more. Right, let me just clean that up a bit. Looks a bit messy. Speaking of messy, we are really missing football, aren't we? Okay, I believe it is almost done. I'll just trim the excess wires from these pads. So yeah, it was quite time consuming and hard, but it's worth it. And now I can use that tiny little thing on my Vero board. So I do not encourage you to do this at all, but if you're out of options, definitely try this out. So thanks for watching, thanks for sticking around in this boring video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.